Oh boy, you join me inside the cabin of the 2020 Porsche 911 Carrera S Cabriolet, which is Porsche speak for convertible. This is the first model year of the all-new 992 Generation 911, which follows in a long line of rear-engine, iconically shaped sports cars. This one in particular excites me because it has the optional 7-speed manual gearbox. Yes, a manual gearbox in a 2020 sports car. It's becoming an increasing rarity. But in this review, I want to find out if the 911 is still the driver's choice. Is it still engaging, or has it gotten soft with luxury and refinement? Also, how does that convertible top play into the equation? That's today on Miles Per Hour. And there it is, the 2020 Porsche 911 Carrera S Cabriolet. Convertible. It's a 911 convertible. Call it whatever you want. This one is painted Gentian Metallic, which is, as we can see, a blue on the deeper sort of midnight end of the spectrum. But if you get it in the sunlight, you can see metallic flake on the surface of the paint. And if you like this paint color, which I think looks very good, especially with that gray leather interior or maybe a tan leather interior, those would be nice combinations. Just be prepared, you'll have to spend an extra $830 on that, which is not crazy, not in a world of $10,000, $12,000 paint jobs for some cars. Now, before I get too deep into the exterior walk around, I just want to quickly say, if you have not subscribed to the channel yet, please do so. You help me out and help yourself out because you'll get access to daily car videos. I've got walk-arounds, POV day drives, POV night drives, live Q&As, and reviews like this one. You don't want to miss out on any of that. So just tap subscribe and then hit the bell to get notified. And if none of this is news to you, you've been following the channel for a while and you want to help out, I really appreciate it. You can do that a couple ways. I've got MilesPerHr t-shirts, new ones coming up, by the way, stickers and other merchandise. And then I also have a Patreon account with different tiers and different perks for you. And all of that, again, is just helping support the daily content. It takes a lot to put these videos together, edit them, and get them to you. So keeping me going, really appreciate it. And we're done with that. Let's get back into the 911 Carrera S Cab. Just abbreviate a cab, that's easier. So design evolution. The 992, an all-new generation, is taking the classic 911 silhouette and not messing with it very much. They're keeping all of the classic lines, the classic proportions. Yes, the car is getting longer and wider as each year goes by, but they're keeping the look. They do, however, take the general roundedness of the vehicle and they tighten it up a little bit. They give it a few more creases, a few more lines, and I'll point those out as we go around here. So in comparison to the 991.2, which had a roundedness to these front air channels, now we've got a box. You can see the crease up here along the nose, and then some boxiness to these plastic air channels. And of course the engine is in the back. So these are just sending cool air to the front brakes and tires. Nothing more. And then this is the LED daytime running light that also becomes the turn signal, goes amber, becomes the turn signal. And then down here we have a front chin splitter, also in plastic. That, if you get the front axle lift kit that is available and equipped on this particular car, it's like $2,700. Then you're not gonna scrape that, or worse, break it off on a really steep driveway or something of the sort. So that may be worth the money to you, but it does add some weight. And again, $2,700. This car ain't cheap. More front air pass through, and then air channel off to the other side of the car as well. Up here, we've got some LED headlights with these unique daytime running light signatures up there. Some pattern work on the housing along with Porsche spelled out there. It's hard to see with the glare. Go to the other side. There we go. Porsche spelled out within the housing. I think the headlights look good. Very recognizable now. If you see those 4 little dots, so you're gonna know you're being followed by a Porsche. Moving to the side, so we talked about the paint color. That is one of the options. The front axle lift kit, that is another one of the options. The third option for this vehicle are the wheels. They are platinum satin 20-inch front, 21-inch rear wheels. And they're very much a classic design, 10-spoke, nothing out of the ordinary here. They look good with the car. There are perhaps better wheel designs. These just sort of go with the car. They don't break the mold in any way. But the gunmetal finish looks good. Red brake calipers, 6-piston front, 4-piston rear, and 13.8-inch rotors. Excellent stopping power. These wheels are wrapped in Pirelli P0 tires, 245 section front, 305 section rear. Excellent grip from these tires. Moving to the back, this is something they definitely don't want to mess with. Just the clean lines, the bodacious booty of this car. So we can see it flares out there, but they don't have any hood creases, they don't have any inlets to the rear engine. They're just keeping this tight and just using more body work. We'll get into that door handle in a second, but you can see it's flush mounted when the car is either locked or after it's been sitting for a while. And now getting to the profile, here's where the Cabriolet, the convertible version of this car, just loses me a little bit, because while it doesn't look bad, it's not the classic 911 silhouette of the coupe. If you really wanted a convertible, okay. But if you aren't sold on the convertible, get the coupe version of this car just for the signature design language of the coupe. It just looks so much better to me, especially when you're looking at the butt, because back here, let me just get down low for a second. How tall is that butt? And it's because the engine is in the rear, so there's no real place to tuck in the convertible top. So it just has to sit on top, and that just adds height. And so it just stands out on the road, especially when you get to that rear 3/4 and then rear angle. It's just a big old butt. It's almost the same height as the driver and passenger heads, which I suppose helps with the wind buffeting, but it just, from a design standpoint, isn't what I would call beautiful. The coupe, gorgeous. The convertible, not as beautiful, just from the rear. Now let's get to that rear, where, let me turn on these tail lights, because those have been updated, of course, for the 992. So they used to be defined light signatures over here. Now it is a bar that runs, Now it's a bar that runs completely across the rear end of the car. You've got Porsche spelled out in big block letters, 911 Carrera S badging there. And then you've got these vents up here. These are functional, leading down into the fans over the engine. That all looks good. And then dropping down low, a lot of this black plastic material, which they didn't honestly use as much of on the 991.2, and I did, I preferred that. So this black plastic stuff that you're seeing here around the exhaust ports, large oval exhaust ports, those look great, but it's very tall, the black plastic piece. I would prefer if they stuck with more body color matching material for the diffuser portion. So yeah, if you could just sort of like visually crop from here up off, totally down. But that big hump doesn't do it for me. The rest of the car though, beautiful. Very much so beautiful. Again, fan of the paint job. And now let's go look more closely at that interior right now. Moving to the interior, we see these flush mounted door handles that look really sleek to tied up against the body. That happens after the car has been locked or if it's in motion. But to pivot them outwards, you hit unlock on the key fob, and that gives you a handhold. One practical issue I've found with these, however, is if the car has been unlocked for a long enough time, the handles will tuck back up against the bodywork, or if you are driving along and say you want to stop and pick up a friend, if the handles aren't out, this is what you're going to experience. Just locking it for demonstration. Nowhere to wedge your fingers in to open the door. You can cram them in there and lift the handle, but that's not fun. That has happened to me a couple times now with the car unlocked, so I wanted to mention it. Oh, and this is the key fob, by the way. Looking good. Did you know that Porsche key fobs have these silhouettes of cars? You see the front and rear wheel arches. It's kind of fun. This key fob has the Porsche crest and an aluminum trim border with unlock, lock, and front trunk opening. Moving to the inside, we're going to see this new 911 interior clad in slate gray leather with chalk white contrast stitch. That's going to be like $3,300 if you want this color configuration. The leather itself is very high quality, soft to the touch, and I like the white contrast stitch on the seats and on that center panel right there and on the door panels. These are 18-way power adjustable sport seats that Porsche is going to charge you an extra $3,400 for. Just heads up, the options list is racking up here. And then if you want ventilation in addition to the heating that the 18-way power adjustable come with, then you're gonna have to pay an extra $840 or so for that. So just your seats alone are gonna be like $4,000 plus the leather color. Looking at the door panel, we're gonna see that white, chalk white contrast stitch on top of a leather piece. Nice place to rest your elbow up there or down here with some squishy leather material. That white contrast stitch going around this centerpiece, and then even leather down here past the armrest. That's a nice touch. No hard plastics, with some door pockets there and in there for you to stash keys, wallet, sunglasses. Piano black surfaces for the door mirrors, which are power folding, and the window switches. More piano black for lock and unlock, and your 3-position memory seat settings. This is genuine aluminum trim. That's an option on this car for like $1,260. So yeah, watch out for that options list. But all feels good. And then now down here we have our Bose surround sound system, another option on this car. Yeah, leather all over. Even down here, below the ignition and light controls, this is all leather. There's a better look at that aluminum trim with this more brushed metal look bordering that. More white / chalk contrast stitch over the headliner, over the dashboard, and this is all leather up here. So yeah, you're not gonna find low quality materials in this cabin, that is for sure. These seat backs are in a plastic, but they are painted gray to match the cabin. It's a shinier material than the leather. They look good. However, your knees might go in the back. No, they will go in the back. If you put someone back here, kids, very small kids, are going to be the only ones who will fit behind the front 2 seats of the 911 Carrera S Cab, unless you are a shorter driver, because look at that legroom. That's me at 6 feet tall. That's my driving position. And I have a longer torso, so my legs aren't crazy long, so the seats aren't as far back as some other 6-footers might be. That is just a ridiculous amount of legroom. And the seats themselves are straight up. Look at the seat backs. Straight up. And just because I love you guys, I do like that they did the chalk contrast stitch, even on this leather grab handle. That's nice. But lift the seat back forward, and the seat doesn't slide forward. This is just yet another point to me that's saying Porsche doesn't actually want you to put people back here, just stuff. It is useful as a parcel shelf. That was hard to say. But for people, not so much. Let's just climb back here and see. Let's just see. I know this is gonna go. Okay, oh, I'm in a bucket and I'm straight upright. Not happy, not the face of a happy man. So yeah, I have, well, I mean, no, yeah, the seat's not gonna go all the way back. So hope that the person up there is short or that you are short if you're planning to put people back here. You do have speakers back there. And there's a look at your dashboard. Not illuminated though. The car is not on. The contrast stitch continues back in here. Oh, totally almost ate it. That was fun. Okay, back to looking at the front part of the car. We do have a tread plate with 911 Carrera S. And then here are your release switches for your front trunk and for your engine cover. So, put the car in accessory mode. And then front trunk. Let's take a look at that. So in addition to that rear passenger / cargo space, we do have a pretty deep front trunk opening. I stashed like 5 or 6 grocery bags in there wide, and then I put some other stuff, soft stuff on top of that. So that's kind of what you can get in there from an errand standpoint. I bet you'd get 2 small suitcases or 1 medium to large suitcase in there. That's a backpack for reference laid down. There it is, tight up against the side. So yeah, your cargo space really isn't bad. Not with that good sized front trunk opening and the area behind the front 2 seats. So let's hop on in and start it up. Of course, the key is on the left-hand side. That goes back to Porsche's history racing in Le Mans, where they had running starts. So the drivers would have to run out to their car, have to put the car in first gear, and turn the car at the same time. So instead of having to do one, then the other, because you only have one right hand, at least most people do, they had the drivers doing 2 things at one time. So you turn the key on with your left hand and be putting it into first gear at the same time. So you got a quicker start. Solid door sound there. So when the car starts up, it's always going to be a little louder, but after a few seconds it will mellow out, unless you put it into sport mode, which you do with this drive mode selector. That is part of the Sport Chrono package. So one of the big changes for the 992 generation is it used to be all analog gauges except for 1 digital one. Now you just have the analog tachometer. Thank goodness it's still analog. That looks cool. And the 3D effect there is pretty neat. But then the other 2 sides are all digital. So these can be reconfigured with the controls here on the steering wheel. G-force meter, sport chrono, lap timer. You can get that full display to show your navigation. There you go, the exhaust quiet down. Telemetry data, all that good stuff. And then your drive modes, which that'll either go when you slide this up or you just crank the dial. So this is the most helpful display for me, the gear shift assist, which is going to show you when to shift your gear and also what gear you're in. So if let's see if it shows up. No? Okay. So going into gear won't actually help right now when I'm sitting still. When you're moving, it will show what gear you're in. Then off to the right, you have a fuel gauge and oil temperature. Over here, you have got your wipers. That is a plastic housing, but piano black face. And then, you know, I think I preferred the 9N1.2 steering wheel. I liked the metal trim. This now all muted down dark doesn't look as good. It doesn't pop as much to me. Porsche steering wheels have always been bits of jewelry. The only ones better, I think, out there are Ferrari steering wheels, but they were my second favorite for sure. And the drive mode selector here used to look better to me. It just, the detail on it, it still has a knurled finish on the outside. and it still has helpful tactile feedback as you're going through the different drive modes. We have wet, normal, sport, sport plus. You heard at sport the exhaust baffles open up, and then individual mode. That wet mode's pretty neat. It's kind of a first in the market where it senses water on the surface of the ground and then will just automatically adjust the traction control system. So it'll turn on even if you are not in wet mode. Moving to this left-hand display here, this one isn't as reconfigurable as your right-hand one. This is always going to stay your speedometer. This you can choose from a digital clock like this with your time and then outside air temperature, or an analog clock, or a compass. Moving on down, we've got your turn signal. Press up and it will indicate for a couple seconds, or push it all the way up to hold the indication. Piano black surfacing on the front like the windshield wipers. Moving down here, we've got a knurled finish for your volume control. And then we've got your voice activation. Down here is your cruise control selector. No standard adaptive cruise control, but you do have standard lane keeping assist. All leather for this piece over the airbag and horn. Porsche crest right in the center with a textured surface. That's nice. Moving off to the infotainment here, 10.2-inch display. It is a touchscreen. You do get standard navigation, and it's pretty quick to respond. Smartphone functionality, pinch and zoom, all that good stuff. Sirius XM radio is going to be standard. Under your car settings, you have some controls to adjust the gauge clusters. Then under your drive setting, duplication of all your drive modes that you can get to by cranking on that knob or going in here. Start stop system, you can turn that on or off. Exhaust system, turn that on or off, louder or not, but there's also a button here or a toggle here with a knurled finish. That just feels better to control it via that. Same thing with the chassis mode suspension. There's a normal or sport setting up there, or you can press this button / toggle here. Spoiler, raise and lower it. Press it once, it will raise it up, hold it, and it will lower it back down. You can also take over some of the screen with a second menu with some navigation and call information and media. Moving up onto the dashboard, we see our analog Sport Chrono lap timer. Fun detail. And then moving down, we've got our controls for the front end lift kit. Press it once and it will raise the nose a few inches. Press it again and it will lower it, or just let the car get up to speed. I think it's like 25-30 miles an hour, and it will automatically lower it. The exhaust button I showed you already goes red, makes a nice noise. Traction control system, and then your sport damping. Knurled finishes for the air vents, direction, and whether you're opening or closing them. That's kind of nice. Piano black surfacing for everything surrounding the gear selector, and either whether it's the PDK or whether it's the manual, you're going to get that piano black, which man, it's just going to scratch and smudge so easily and get dust and stuff on it. I don't like it. I don't like piano black. Your seek and volume knob there. Some knurled toggles here for your temperature for the HVAC system and the vent pressure. This is a dial to control some of the functions on the infotainment. So if you're driving and you don't want to be poking around touching the screen, you can just use this as a quick selection. And now getting to the best part. So the manual, beyond just being more engaging to drive, it just looks better in this interior, because if you don't have the manual, you have this tiny little nub that is supposed to be your gear selector on the PDK equipped cars. And I just don't think it looks good. It doesn't look like it goes with the rest of the car. This looks fantastic. Not only is it really a nice leather wrapped gear selector with a knurled finish, it's just the base is all leather with this contrast stitching. It just looks better, and it just looks like it goes in a 911. Oh, that's nice. Moving your way through the gears, reverses all the way over and to the left. If you do that, it's going to bring up a backup camera. No multiple angles, no overhead view. That isn't equipped on this car, but you do have parking sensors as standard. Moving on down, We've got some controls for our seat ventilation and heating, both of which are 3-stage. Back here is our e-brake. Push down to release, pull up to engage. Nice aluminum trim surrounding that e-brake and this cubby right here, which is interesting. It's not very large, but you could put maybe your keys to the car, keys to your house in there, or you could replace it with an adapter for a beverage. Look at you. Now you've got a cup holder, but what about your passenger? They just suffer, hope that you will share this, or do they get their own? Yes, they get their own. There's this hidden cup holder over here. Both can bring beverages, but what kind of beverages? Are they gonna be dinky ones or big bottles? Yeah, it's time for the big bottle test in the 911 Carrera S Cabriolet. Let's see, does it fit? No, not there. Not there. Door pockets? No, that's a definite no. There? And no there. Okay, all right, one last spot to try. Okay, yeah, that kind of works until you start driving, and then, yeah, that happens. Okay, so it's going to be a fail for the 911 Carrera S Cabriolet with the big bottle test, I'm sad to say. But we're just going to move on with our lives. And this adapter, we'll put in here. Yeah, that works. Dashboard. More of the leather and shock stitching. Leather all over the place. That feels good. More of the aluminum trim down here. I showed you the glove box, but let's look again. It's a good sized glove box. You can actually fit stuff in there. And then up here, we've got some LED interior lights. Plastic backing for your rear view mirror. And then how about these sun visors? Yeah, well, they are made of leather. That's nice. With a plastic cover for your mirror and lights. But I want to know if they slide back. No, they don't slide back. That's unfortunate. Okay, well, that's with the top down. Let's see what this bad boy's like with the top up. So we can pull, that is to make the top go down. This is to make the top come up. Let's try that. Okay, so from inside, you can see I've got plenty of headroom, which is very important. It's not crazy dark in here. That's good. Narrow back window, but not too narrow. All right, let's see what the car looks like from the outside. All right, folding fabric roof is up. Let's see how it looks. So far, so good. I wonder, in the profile, now that it's going to look more like the coupe, is this actually better with the top up to me? No, better with the top down. But it doesn't look that bad with the top up. Gives you that classic 911 shape, except with, not really a B-pillar. But I don't mind it with the top up. That's important, because you're going to spend a fair amount of time driving with the top up if you don't live where it's sunny all the time. The back look, it looks kind of weird because the body comes up so far and then you just have a narrow piece of roof in your view of the back end. Yeah, I mean, prefer it with the top down for sure, but top up doesn't look bad. Okay, all right. Passes the visual exam with the top up. But oh, look at that. The door handle has already gone flush again, which means I gotta cram my fingers in here and then pull it. Now, let's put this top back down. So we hold this. Okay, now let's rev it up. take it for a drive. All right, it's gonna be a top-down, shades up kind of drive. In fact, let's put something else up. That is gonna cut down on the wind buffeting in this cabin, as is my fuzzy doohickey here for my mic. Now let's talk about the engine for this car. So it is a carryover 3.0 liter twin turbo flat six motor. The flat six configuration with the opposed cylinders is iconic for Porsche, but they did upgrade the turbochargers. They are now larger. We also have new fuel injectors and repositioned intercoolers. That all gives us a total of 443 horsepower, up 23 horsepower over the outgoing 991.2, and 390 pound-feet of torque. That's up 22 pound-feet. So now our 0 to 60 time drops to just 3.6 seconds for this S Cabriolet with the manual. If you go with the PDK 8-speed dual clutch, then that's going to drop your time down 1/10 of a second to 3.5 seconds. This car is quick. And it sounds good too. In sport mode, letting the exhaust open up. You can hear the overrun. I also love the wastegate noise. It sounds to me like, and this is gonna be an odd metaphor, when you're at the dentist and they've just given you the fluoride rinse and you spit it into a vacuum looking hose thing and it sucks it down, highly pressurized. That's what it sounds like. It's a weird metaphor, but that's, to me, that's what the wastegate sounds like. We have this 7-speed manual gearbox, and having a manual is great, but having a really good manual gearbox is phenomenal. These shifts are short and so notchy. It notches into each gear, so you know you're in the right place. You also have this gear shift assistant up here on the dashboard, should you so choose, that will let you know what gear you're in case you're confused. And yes, we do have 7 speeds, but that 7th gear is really kind of an overdrive gear. So used more for fuel economy. That helps this car gets. List the fuel economy specs right here, right now, because I cannot remember off the top of my head. But it's pretty decent for what it is as a 443 horsepower sports car, and that 7th speed is helping in that regard. So some new stuff for 2020 for the Carrera S. Now you can get the sport package with Porsche active suspension management that we do have on this car. That means you're going to get shorter dampers, you're going to get stiffer, sportier springs, and you'll also get a lowered ride height. That with the Porsche active suspension management system means you've got those adaptive dampers, so it's soaking up road blemishes when you don't want to be crazy, but then it stiffens right up for some hard cornering. I'm finding that the driving experience in a corner is phenomenal. It's so good. It's everything I wanted it to be, maybe a little bit more. And when you're just cruising, the wind buffeting in here really is not bad at all. The amount of moving air between that piece and these enclosed windows with the windows up is so minimal. You really could cruise in this thing at freeway speeds. I'm doing them right now very easily and have a conversation with your passenger, no problem. But then you might just want to kick it down a couple gears and go have some fun. Oh my gosh. This thing is such a treat. It is an absolute treat. And you also get, if you choose the manual transmission instead of the dual clutch PDK, you get a couple things as standard. You get a sport chrono package, which includes that fun little lap timer up there on the dashboard, and you also get a competition mode for the stability control, and you get this drive mode selector here on the steering wheel. So that's all comes standard if you choose the manual, which is a no-cost option, which is amazing. So you get all those things that are normally $2,700 for free. That's always good. Also, if you choose the manual, you do get a mechanical limited slip rear differential instead of the electronic limited slip rear differential, which saves you 84 pounds. That's important because the Cabriolet version of this car adds a couple hundred pounds. This car in no way feels heavy, and at 3,500 pounds, it really isn't. So it hustles through the corners. There's just like no body roll at all. And this twin turbo motor has very, very minimal lag. And the lag is kind of fun when it's there because it's that genuine turbocharged feel where you're waiting for that boost to build and then it comes on. And my goodness, does it come on. This car is so fast. So fast and so much fun. No one does steering like Porsche. Porsche's tuning of their electronic steering racks is so good that you really could mistake it for a hydraulic rack. The engagement that you have with the car, it pulls you into the experience. That combined with this manual gearbox mean you're just gonna have tons of fun. And speaking of fun, we're pulling up to one of my favorite stretches of road here. So let's see how the Carrera S Cabriolet lays it down in these tight corners. Wow. Oh, so neutral. Oh, wow. I don't really have good words here. This is just so enjoyable. Oh my gosh. The suspension just soaks things up and then gives you the pivot points. Oh man, I'm having so much fun here. That's probably very clear. Also, as part of that Sport Chrono package, you do get a rev match function that I haven't really had to rely on, thankfully, because I'm practicing my heel-toe rev match downshifts. But it will cut in and help you out if you don't want to do it yourself. And if you do want to cool things off, if you want to take it out of there, I had it in Sport. You can go into Sport Plus to really dial it up. But I'm going to take it on down back to neutral. You also have an individual mode if you want to set up your presets for powertrain response and shift timing. Not applicable here. We don't have the dual clutch automatic, but your throttle response and your suspension damping, all those presets you can pull right up in your individual mode. But I'm going to take it into normal, and let's put up the top, which you can do at speeds up to 35 miles an hour. And this is only a 12-second affair. It's faster by 1 second than the previous generation 911 Carrera S Cabriolet. Let's see how quiet it gets. Oh, that's nice. That is nice. That's coupe-like quiet. I can even take off my sunglasses. It's gotten dark in here. All right. So we can clearly see that it does the job as a performance vehicle. And now, when we're enjoying it with the top up, it's going to do the job as a luxury vehicle because spoken about the suspension, how it soaks up those road blemishes. Speaking now about how quiet it is in here with the convertible top up, you've got these comfortable 18-way power adjustable seats. And the leather-wrapped steering wheel, all the touch points are really high quality. You don't have some of those active safety features that you can get in other cars. Then again, sports cars really seem to filter most of those out unless you're getting into certain specific automakers. But I don't really feel like I need them. Blind spot monitoring, that we do have, that's an important one so that you can see, because we do have a bit of a blind spot there at the C pillar, the C folding hardtop point. So that's an important safety feature. And I would love to see adaptive cruise control on this one. We just have a standard cruise control. We do have a lane keeping assist function. So that's gonna help you if you're planning on doing long distance highway cruising. But no big complaints there. We do have those heated and ventilated seats. So I'm just kind of sinking in as a luxury car experience here. But I'm also thinking, $127,000 to start for this 911 Carrera S Cabriolet. Would my money be spent better somewhere else? So let's think about the competitors. We have a car I just drove recently, the new Lexus LC500 convertible. That one is going to start at significantly lower of a starting price. That is $102,000. It makes more power than this with its naturally aspirated V8, 471 horsepower for that car. The 0 to 60 time, though, is significantly slower, 4.6 seconds, so that's a second off the pace of this car. And the top speed is 168 miles an hour, should you care. Then you also have the Jaguar F-Type R convertible, not the R Dynamic, the full-on R. That one makes 575 horsepower from a supercharged V8, and so much more power than this. The 0 to 60 time, though, is about the same, 3.5 seconds. And the top speed for that one, 184 miles an hour. So still, both of those off the pace of the top speed of this car, which is 190. Yeah, you can get moving. This is built for German Autobahn, that's for sure. So of those cars that I mentioned, they are both cheaper. I didn't mention the Jaguar starting price is $106,000. They're both cheaper, and some could argue they're prettier to look at. For me, the profile of this with the big rear hump kind of brings it down. But apart from that, it looks very good. So you could argue they were potentially prettier. You could argue the Lexus has a more extravagant cabin. The Jaguar, no, not seeing that. And you could argue that the V8 naturally aspirated in the Lexus makes a better noise, supercharged in the Jaguar, perhaps more exciting. But then as driver's cars, I keep getting back to this, as driver's cars, they just can't hang with the Porsche 911 Carrera S Cab. This manual gearbox brings me in. I don't know if I would be brought in quite as much if it had that PDK, but if you need to have a convertible and you also want the best driver's car out there, I don't think you can beat this 911 Carrera S Cab. It's just so good at everything it does. If you can get around the hump on the rear and you can get around that starting figure, which is a lot of money, then this is going to be the one for you. I also didn't mention this car, as tested, is $148,000. Yeah, it's pricey. It doesn't have all that many options either. So that is the 2020 Porsche 911 Carrera S Cabriolet, perhaps my favorite convertible on sale as a driver's car. And I can't wait for my next exposure to 911 goodness. But you know what? Give me a coupe, would you?